Catching up with Sarah and Ginny, fueled by laughter and insights aplenty. Curiosity, connection, and learning that sticks. Real talk, real lives with practical tips. Welcome to Catching Up with Sarah and Ginny. Come on in.
Good morning, Mr. Gilbert.
Good morning. Good morning. How are you?
I'm very well. And I am coming to you from your motherland, from Northamptonshire. Is that right?
My first teaching was in and across Northamptonshire. I'm actually a Leicestershire boy, so just across the border, Market Harbour. But Northamptonshire was where I applied my initial craft.
Your initial craft. I absolutely love that. So where are you? It's like Eurovision. So where are you beaming from today?
So I'm beaming live from just outside Helsinki in Finland. So my wife is the principal of the International School of Helsinki. So I'm sort of chief bag carrier and arm candy, depending on the event. So I sort of been around the world. I've been very fortunate to sort of live and work in various parts of the world, and a lot of that linked to my wife's career. So before that, we were in Rotterdam. She was the head of a Rotterdam International Secondary School. Before that, she was a deputy or a VP in Hong Kong. So we were there. We've lived in Dubai and Chile, where she's originally from. So I've got this really unique position of being able to live and work in education and be involved in education. Have my 3 kids, 2 of my daughters went into international education in Hong Kong and Chile and Dubai. So this unique position of sort of seeing education from a global perspective. And a lot of it thanks to my wife and me just being able to pick up a suitcase or look pretty at an event.
I think that's amazing. Well, I think all of it is amazing, but I think it's amazing that you have got that kind of lens of so many different ways that education is happening, is working, and potentially sometimes isn't working quite so well, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's a really privileged position. So I can go to places like, like Singapore. I was asked to go and speak in Singapore for the British Council, and they'd had, Gove or Gib or both of them or something, visit them. And all Gove did was take back the things that he wanted to see. Oh, it's about direct transmission teaching. It's about mastery. It's about the teacher at the front. It's about kids sitting in rows. And they missed all the other good stuff that was going on. So when people say in the previous politicians, but the current ones are almost similar, we need to be like Singapore, we need to be like Shanghai, we need to be like Hong Kong. I'm actually I've been to these places and seen them saying, well, it's not quite like that. And things like tutoring. So I know from experience in Chile and in Hong Kong, Singapore, Shanghai, that kids get tutored. They have these tutors in Hong Kong were like rock stars. They were earning megabucks by just basically getting online and tutoring kids how to get into university. So you've got it's called the shadow education system. So you've got the main schooling system, and then you've got this shadow stuff for the parents who can afford it. So I did some work at the Korean International School, and the teachers there were saying, so during the day it's a proper international school. I think they did the IB, and then the teachers leave, and then in the afternoon, end of the day, the tutors move in, and the kids get tutored. Kids get tutored on a Saturday. Sunday they do their homework. So anytime people say, "Oh, PISA," we're behind Shanghai, Korea, South Korea, Hong Kong on PISA results. We don't have that tutoring mindset in the UK. We have a little bit in England around grammar schools, so you'll see it there. And again, your privilege, your money pays for access to such things. But we're not really comparing like with like when you see the amount of sort of extracurricular, out of school tutoring that's going on. And I see that, and I've witnessed that, and so I'm able to say actually it's not quite like that. And in Singapore, so we were told, oh yeah, it's direct transmission. It's the research I did before I went to do some work there. Many of the parents were writing blogs and were online saying, we don't want our kids to be taught the way we were taught, to the test, direct transmission, teacher at front. We know that the world has changed. We need more creativity. We need more independence. We need more independent learning. We need something different other than just blah, blah, blah from the front. And the Ministry of Education, I haven't checked recently, but a while back, they had a thing called, where they said basically teach less, learn more. So they were trying to encourage the teachers to stop teaching so much in order that the children could, which resonated with our, at the time, one of our best-selling books by Jim Smith, one of our associates with independent thinking, The Lazy Teacher's Handbook. So when he was a geography teacher, GCSE and A-level, it was full of practical ideas that say basically, how can we plan lessons in such a way where they do more and the teacher can do less? Not teacher sits around doing nothing, but the teacher can do the thing that only the teacher can do, the mentoring, the coaching, the one-to-one conversations, the helping overcome sort of specific obstacles, but not necessarily everybody. I'm at the front, everybody's going to get the same diet all the time. So things like that I've been able to see over the last 30 years of independent thinking and about 15 years of traveling the world, a bit more than that, traveling the world. So it's a privileged position to do that. I'm in Finland now, but I'm aware that I've not yet been into a local Finnish school, so I can't comment on the Finnish miracle, as they call it, around education. But I do see happy kids. I see 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds walking themselves to school. I see little, kids on their own playing out in the woods. And there's a sense of the childhood that we used to have in the UK, that I had growing up in Market Harbour. There's that sense of freedom, that sense of exploration, that sense of adventure that I see with kids here. And yeah, this is the happiest nation in the world. When we're in Rotterdam, the Netherlands had the happiest children in the world. And again, you see them out and about. They're in the bikes, in the front, in a bucket of the bikes with their parents. There's just that sense of connection and being outside. And then you look at, unfortunately, the UK and England, and some of our kids are some of the unhappiest in the world, certainly the unhappiest in Europe, and it's not getting any better. So I'm privileged to see that, and privileged that my children have managed to be outside of that English. They were there for a while, but then we were able to sort of break free, if you like, which is an honour. So, and they're all living abroad now. They're all happy to be living in Australia and Spain and Dubai and all over the place. So yeah, we're an international family for all sorts of reasons and with all sorts of benefits.
Wow. And going back to Finland, I was very fortunate. 7 years ago, I went for a week to be immersed in the Finnish education, and I was really bowled over by how much the children are taught to deal with conflict between one another together. I saw 2 3-year-olds outside in the snow. They were outside, and there was no fence. They chose to stay. And I saw one of them hit another one with a little spade. And I said to the teacher, "Oh, that's just happened," kind of like as if, like maybe you should
Snitch.
intervene. And the teacher said, watch.
Mm.
And the children sorted out themselves, and the teacher said, if I go and sort that out now, they will come back to me every time there is an incident. If I step back and allow them to sort it out, they will sort it out again. And it was very, very pivotal for me as an educator when I went to Finland. The lady who organised it, she literally, Ian, held my hands and said, Ginny, you are going to have to be open. You're going to have to open your mind to something new. And when you open your mind, then you will kind of internalize it and see things differently. And I really, really did, and came back with a different mindset that I was able to use, in my classroom. But I just think it is so interesting about the kind of the breadth that you've got. So you've got that breadth, Ian. So tell me about what you do when you're not carrying bags.
So I'm the founder and currently CEO of Independent Thinking. So that's a company I set up whilst I was teaching in Northampton. Even my NQT year, my not quite a teacher year, as I used to be called, I was doing all these extracurricular classes around thinking skills and philosophy for children and mind mapping and learning and motivation stuff. The reason I was there as a French teacher, but I went into teaching because I wanted to work with kids' brains in that sort of way. That was the purpose. And then I met a colleague in the staff room, Sue Chamberlain, whose husband, Paul, they lived just outside Northampton. They had some money to invest. He'd sold his business, engineering business. And they said, we like your ideas. We think that it's viable as a company. We'd like to lend you £20,000 to set up as a company. And I'd never really thought of it in that way. And it was like, it's one of these decisions where you have to do what's called the deathbed test or the rocking chair test, where you go to the end of your life and look back and think, do I wish I'd have taken it, yes or no, regardless of whether it worked out or not? Do I wish I'd have said yes or no? And it had to be a yes, regardless of what had happened. And I had my son Will was about 5 at the time. I had another Olivia, another was on the way. So it was a big risk, but the £20,000 helped because then it just gave a little bit of a cushion. I did supply teaching. I worked in Harbour District Council doing PR for a while there. So it helped launch what was then independent thinking, and Sue and Paul were shareholders, as my wife was at the time. And I didn't really know what it was, but it was primarily to work with young people around the motivation and the thinking and the philosophy stuff. And then head teachers who'd got me into work with their students were saying, that stuff you did can you come and do it with the staff? So it was like, yeah, no, I'm not really, I haven't been teaching that long. But it was like, yeah, okay, go for it. I remember one of the first inset sessions I did was at what was then Kettering School for Girls. I'm not sure, it's probably got a different name now, probably some academy. And at lunchtime, I was chatting to one of the teachers, a young guy, and he was saying, "Don't apologize. You know stuff that we need to know. So just go for it." And it sort of gave me the confidence that, yeah, I know stuff. I can do stuff. I still get nervous doing inset. It's still something that petrifies me, but I've done a lot of it over the years. And then I got involved in a project across Northamptonshire where they were looking at introducing sort of alternative ways of thinking into pedagogy, and also sort of trying to light the blue touch paper on thinking skills, especially around philosophy for children. So I ended up going into practically every school in Northamptonshire, primary, secondary, infant, special, all sort of the Peru in Corby, just working with staff, working with students on helping them just think differently about education. That's where things like my thunks came from, which grew out of the philosophy for children work. The thunks are questions like, is a broken down car parked, or is a pregnant woman two people, or do flags divide more than they unite? That's one that's on my mind at the moment when I come back. So independent thinking sort of grew out of that. And for a while, for about 6 months, I employed people, but then it was like, no, I don't like that. When you employ people, you end up with all their problems, and I have problems of my own. So what it turned into was sort of organically was this network of associates who were just doing fantastic stuff in education. And they might be school leaders, they might be teachers, they might have a specific expertise, they might be Senkos, but just people whose values are in keeping with independent thinking's values, which is about integrity and creativity and passion and putting the child at the centre. And we're just a platform by which these people can spread the word, if you like. And then through the books, the association with Crown House meant that the Independent Thinking Press books are out there, which has been a real privilege to be able to have our voice in print, as well as to be able to stand on stages around the world at conferences, doing training, and then especially since COVID, online in this sort of format, to be able to get across our integrity, energy, passion, creativity, but in this sort of two-dimensional format as well, that's been quite a privilege too. So my job now, from my various vantage points around the world, is sort of coordinating that, looking at the marketing for that, leading on that, and then especially a lot of the editing and the writing around the books, and especially with the new iteration for the way the books are going to happen, which we'll perhaps come to when we look at my wow moment a little bit in a little while.
Oh, yes, fab. And so I didn't even ask this question because I've got no idea what you're going to say, Ian. So the question is, how do we know each other?
I think the court order didn't work. I think a bit like what David Parkland said. The stalking it was relentless. I think it was Twitter and Red Shoes and all that sort of stuff. And then there was an overlap with Roy Layton. Roy was one of our long-time associates from way back. When I first met him, he touched me deeply, as it were in a hotel room in Wellingborough. He'll tell you all about it. So there was that sort of overlap as well, and then it sort of made sense. And I've always just admired your passion and your commitment and your integrity and your creativity. And then since I've got to know you and have become an associate and also work with you on your independent thinking on being a Senko book, your your courage and your bravery to try different things, but always with, it's not about ego. None of us is in independent thinking is about ego. It's about we'll try something different because it might work out even better for the kids and their families and the schools that we're working with.
Yeah.
And that's what I see in you.
Yeah.
So that's how we know each other. And that sort of, it's gone from the sort of like the Twitter stuff, and when Twitter was half decent, not the
Yeah.
shit show that it is now, to this. And my mum still lives in Market Harborough, so I think the last time we met was by the side of a canal somewhere,
Yeah. Yeah.
putting the world to
Yeah.
rights.
I was just going to say that, putting the world to rights, and yeah, because the link with Roy Layton, another associate, I met Roy because he lives in Northamptonshire, and then from my point of view, when COVID hit, and independent thinking were doing a lot of really inspiring talks online, and I was like, I need to listen to these talks. I remember Nina did one, Andrew Curran did one, and I remember kind of having this affinity and just going, these are my kind of people who I really had an affinity with. And then I think, oh, I know, you asked me, well, no, I don't think you did ask me actually, Ian. You asked for some blogs because I did one
Oh yeah,
about fruits of kindness. I think that was the first one, and I sent it to you, and you said that there is content. It just needs kind of, kind of glittering, polishing. And I think that's how it started, wasn't it? It was a guest blog. Then I did chapter
yeah,
4 Square Pegs as well. So
quick eggs.
yeah,
Yeah,
a
yeah.
series of very fortunate, yeah, a series of very fortunate events. Okay. Yeah.
During COVID, we did a whole series of what I remember the very first week of sort of lockdown. I'd never done a webinar before. Okay, what do I do now? And then by the end of the week, I'd done about 30, I think, steep learning curve, and we called it "What Now Week." What Now Week. So what's next? What's going to come as after COVID? In the hope that possibly this such an awful experience could help move things forward. But in England, it didn't, because the powers that be, Gavlar and the likes, just sort of tried to put the toothpaste back into the tube, and we missed such an opportunity to move things forward. But I think most associates and others, friends of independent thinking, we got online, we did these webinars all about a whole variety of different areas of education, to support teachers, to help, because everybody was feeling isolated. I was in Rotterdam at the time to keep our name in people's minds, and just to say, look, there is hope, and hope is a big part of what we try and get across, especially now, if you like. My first proper book for Routledge, Independent Essential Motivation in the Classroom. Essential Motivation. There's a chapter all about hope and how hope leads to internal motivation, and the fact that book's coming back for its third iteration now, almost 20 years on, over 20 years on, shows that we still need hope. We still need that sense of, well, the best definition of hope that I've come up with is things can get better and I can do something about it. And you've got to have that second bit, and that sense of control, which is another one of my keys to motivation. I can do something about it, which resonates with what you said in Finland. If we're not careful, young people can develop what's called learned helplessness. If you don't know what to do, somebody will sort it out for you. Or if you're in trouble, somebody will come and rescue you, or somebody will fix it for you. Whereas what you saw in Finland was kids learning to sort it out for themselves, which is so important. And
Yeah.
during COVID,
Yeah.
we see the ones who were able to deal with uncertainty and complexity and challenge and fear and not knowing what to do, but were still able to do something. What did Piaget say? Intelligence is what you use when you don't know what to do. So we saw the intelligent ones, which weren't necessarily the academic ones during COVID. As think about all our colleagues who were panicked, who were stressed by it, who were just really didn't know what, just because they didn't know what was happening, it was the worst thing possible, compared to those who didn't know what was happening and it was okay because they're used to working in that way. So I can't remember how we got onto that, but yes,
Yeah. Yeah.
COVID. That was it.
And I think from independent thinking, I think independent thinking, one of the sayings is there is another way. And I think it is this broadening of our minds rather than narrowing of our minds. And I really think that should be the essence of what we do in education, about actually listening to others, taking on board what others are saying so that we can broaden our viewpoint.
Mm. There is another way. I think I was in Dave Harris in one of his previous schools, and we were talking about education, and that's where that phrase sort of first came into my head. And I'm thinking, well, but that just embodies what we're talking about. So independent thinking. We're not saying this is how it's not a system, it's not a process. We're not selling a product. We're just saying there's this, but there's also this. So around behavior. So yeah, so there's all sorts of things in England which come from America, has been fed into Australia around this is how you do behavior. I mean, there's a lot around this is how you do teaching as well, but this is how you do behavior. And I'm not going to get into arguments on social media with people who advocate or benefit from a certain way of doing behavior. But I will do what I can do through the platform that independent thinking is to say there's that, but also there's this. So to be able to publish Paul Dixit or When the Adults Change, we're not saying I'm going to argue with, we're just saying there's this way of looking at it. Or to publish Independent Thinking on Restorative Practice by Mark Finnis. We're not saying you're wrong, we're saying there's this. Or The Kindness Principle by Dave Whittaker.
Yes.
How kindness is the harder thing to do rather than control and no excuses and zero tolerance. Kindness is the challenge, but it's the one that has the longer term, the medium term benefits and the longer term benefits for society generally.
Yeah.
There's this. I'm not going to argue with you. I'm not telling you you're wrong, even though I might think that, but I'm just saying there's another way. Have a look at this. Have a look at that. Think about this. Try that. And the whole try this, try that. When you have this, everything has to be evidence-based and research-based, or the research is being weaponized because there's a lot of research out there that is just practice of a certain style. But what works, and if you look at the work of Biesta, 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 things like A Beautiful Risk, The Beautiful Risk of Education echoes with this as well. What works is really what worked. Because good teachers know that you could do something on a Tuesday morning at 10 o'clock with a class, which works brilliantly, and then you try it on Thursday afternoon with the same class, and it falls apart. It worked, but it doesn't mean to say it will always work. So you have this sense of, okay, there's this, but I can also try this, and there's that, and there's this. So I'll look at the research, but teachers as inventors, as innovators, as tinkerers, I'm much more into that rather than, okay, here's the research done by somebody else that I'm now going to have to deliver in my classroom in a particular way because that's evidence informed. Where's the progress? Where's the innovation? Where's the job satisfaction? Where's the ability to react to the child in the room at the present time because there's stuff going on in the world and there's stuff going on in their lives and I still need to get them to learn stuff. So being more reactive and iterative in a knowledgeable way using Biesta talks about the gift of teaching. So the gift of teaching is the thing that only you can bring to the lesson. This is why the lazy teaching works well, because all the other stuff that anybody can do, including 6-year-olds, get them to do it. The gift of teaching is, what do I bring to this lesson that is unique to this moment in time and to me? Who I am, my subject knowledge, my pedagogical knowledge, my knowledge of the child, of the class, of the families, of the community, of what's going on in the world. All of that stuff comes together into this unique gift that I can bring to the lesson if I'm not standing at the front pressing fast forward on a PowerPoint.
Yeah, I think I might class it as everyone's personal living toolkit, because I think that's what it is. We have a toolkit and we choose what to use when we add to the toolkit, and I think that is a wonderful way of looking at it. I'm intrigued, Ian. I'm intrigued because you've kind of said something about this wow moment. So I've now got to ask you, what has been your recent wow moment? Because you just said, "Oh, I'll get on to the wow moment." So I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Yeah. Okay. So to be honest, there's been a few. So as opposed to, because I'm not in the classroom, so I can't say this child suddenly did this amazing thing. But it's this. It could be that I'm in, because I live in Finland. The wow moment is a flock of geese migrating overhead. That just blows my mind. Or there's the fact there was a red squirrel in the garden earlier when I was out with the dog. Or there's deer wandering around my garden. There's they still wow me. And I'm determined wherever I am in the
Yes.
world to continue to be wowed. When I was with my kids, we lived in Suffolk for a while, and every time I went past a field full of pigs, I'll go, look, pigs, because I don't want the pigs to become invisible. When we lived in Dubai, it was like, there's the Burj Khalifa. Otherwise, it becomes a bit. There's the Andes in Chile. There's a windmill. I don't want any of this stuff to be invisible, because the world's tallest building can easily become invisible, or the Andes Mountains, because it's just normal.
Yes.
So it's important to be wowed on an ongoing basis. So I look around and find the wow. But then from a work point of view, the wow might be, I spoke at an event last month around bereavement, as I've written about. My kids have written about bereavement. So I spoke at University of Sussex event around bereavement, and that led to a professor from St Mary's University putting forward a bid for funding to use I mentioned Thunks earlier. I wrote with Winston's Wish, the bereavement charity, the children. I wrote some Thunks on death, ways of getting young people and teachers talking about this important but difficult subject. So this professor has put forward a funding bid, just a little one, but to the DFE, to say we would like to do a research project around Thunks on death. So I'll come in, work with some kids, she'll observe it, we'll record it, and then that'll then become part of a toolkit that schools can use to help open up conversations, especially in England, because it's now part of the new national curriculum and PSHE as from now, I think. So that's a wow. That's like a wow. Okay, so I did that event for free, but it sort of leads to things. In a couple of hours' time, I'm speaking to a charity that supports men who have lost a child. Now, that's not my area of expertise, but they heard me speak this charity and said, well, we like what you had to say and how you said it. It was very powerful, very, very moving. So can you come and do a sort of, host a session for us? So I've got a meeting about that in a little while. So that's a wow, in a sort of a humbling, privileged sort of way, and an exciting sort of way with, these ideas can sort of move forward. So there's that. But then there's also, so I mentioned the books. So there's a book, the third in the trilogy. I didn't realize I'd written a trilogy till I'd written two of them, realized I need another one. So The Working Class was a big, thick book. I don't think you contributed to it. I think that was pre-Ginny, PG. And then Square Pegs.
But I bought it, Ian. I bought it.
Oh, that counts. That's all right. But they're both thick, collaborative books with sort of over 40, 50 different contributors trying to change the narrative around working class issues, kids from poorer socioeconomic backgrounds, with the first one, and then Square Pegs, written with Square Peg, the CIC, helping the schools just understand a little bit more why certain kids weren't engaging in their families and how to help. And then the third one, I'd already started the process, called No Other: Schools Where Everybody Belongs. And I've got about 60 different contributors for that. And I'm just sort of working my way through that. So I started reading chapters yesterday, and there's some brilliant stuff there. And in terms of associates, so, Nina's written a chapter, Sarah Moses has written a chapter, and Nina's written a great chapter, Mark's written a great chapter, Sarah's written a great chapter, Ginny, you've written a chapter. So there's some really powerful stuff there. And the exciting thing linked to that is, and it's still a little bit hush-hush, so it's between me, you, and your listener, as Terry Wogan used to say, that hopefully will be published by Routledge. So independent thinking is moving from Crown House. They don't want to publish independent thinking press titles anymore for various reasons, which are all understandable. We've still got the back catalogue there, which is great, got a good relationship there. But it means we can now take future independent thinking books through to Routledge, which is a big thing. My two proper books, Essential Motivation in the Classroom and Why Do I Need a Teacher When I've Got Google, are published by Routledge. So I've got a good relationship with them going back 20 years or so. So now they're really keen to look at how they can start publishing independent thinking books going forward. So hopefully No Other will be part of that. Hopefully, and I'm saying hopefully because these are sort of working its way through, but hopefully there's one by Andrew Bernard, around toxic masculinity. It's sort of going to work its way through the system. There'll be a new edition of The Working Class, but published by Routledge, so I can update all the data in there about how basically we're failing kids from working class backgrounds, and the data's only got worse since that book came out a few years ago. So there's lots of exciting things going on, and for little old me and little old independent thinking to be sort of working with Routledge in this way, that's that's a wow. So that's still a sort of a work in process, but it's going to happen, and sort of watch this space on that. So that's that. Yeah, I
Wow.
have a
I mean,
couple
that
of
is
wow.
a wow.
Yeah,
That, you know, it's a big wow, isn't it? You know,
yeah,
that this is happening. So I'm very excited. I'm very excited for you because
yeah.
it's 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 seeing things kind of come to fruition more, is it, Ian? You know, things
I did.
things
I think
growing.
if come to fruition, they die. So I just think it's just an iteration.
Ah,
It's evolution. I don't. Yeah.
evolution.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's
We'll go for evolution.
yeah. It's sort of organic. It just sort of moves on. Actually, another wow is uh, waking up today and finding that New York City's got a communist Muslim mayor, and that's a good wow.
Oh,
That's a good thing. And the e-back is on its way out. So there's
oh,
lots of good things.
sorry, can I just say you're like on five? You know, what is your wow moment? I think we've got a handful, but
Did you
that's
say
good.
one
It's
a
good that
day?
you've got.
Life is just one big wow.
Oh my goodness, I love that. So we're going to talk about songs now, then, Ian. So if "Send" were a song, what would it be and why?
Yeah. See, I'm not a send specialist. So as I've been out walking the dog through the woods, dodging the deer, I've been thinking about what song to go with. And I was, is it things like Don't Give Up, Peter Gabriel and Kate Bush, or Annie Brun, new version, or Don't Give Up on Us Baby, David Soul, that shows my age. Um,
Yeah.
and I'm thinking about, like Chicken Shed. They did some amazing stuff. But then I thought, actually, no, let's give a nod to Sports Day, Dave
Oh,
McPartlin, and his appearance with his kids on Britain's Got Talent with Queen's "Don't Stop Me Now." If you want
yes.
just a brilliant example of inclusion, of creativity, of acceptance, of fun, of emotional engagement. He wrote for the Square Pegs book, and in his chapter, he's describing how the big win for him in his school, the challenging socio-economic background that his kids and families are from, was just getting on a coach to London. He had won before they'd even sort of walked through the studios, because they were staying at a hotel, they got out of Fleet, they were going somewhere different, they were excited, they were together. That was the big win. So it's just that experience. And if you watch it, the golden buzzer moment, and I've watched it so many times, and you still get
Oh,
these dimples, you still get a buzz, you still end up welling up with it. But actually, that was just the top of an iceberg, and the bigger iceberg is just giving kids the chance to do something. There's another way to do something different, to see something different, and to be so fully inclusive. Everybody was there, and everybody was in that um, uh, what they did on stage. Everybody's different. Everybody's doing a different dance, doing a different thing, but yet they are all together. They're all working in time to the music, to the one song, and it just works perfectly. So that's the living embodiment of inclusion done well.
and they were all together, but they were all being themselves, and they were joyous. I've watched
Yes.
it so many times. They were joyous at being themselves, and it goes back really to Finland as well. You know, they were enjoying that moment themselves. They weren't seeking Dave's reassurance when they were on stage. He was there, but they were having an amazing time. And then when the buzzer was pressed and they were literally swimming in the golden kind of confetti, that was them being themselves, you know, and yeah, every time I watch it, like you say, I get the tingles because he there isn't a ceiling for those children. He goes, what do you want to do? Okay, we'll have a go. We'll see how we get there. You know, we'll see what happens. But I think that's a brilliant song, and I'm going to watch it after this for a
There we
bit of
go.
a pick me up. So now to finish with, can you tell? Now this is going to be hard for you to tell us about a favourite book of yours, because you are Mister Book.
Well, I'll make sure it's one that I haven't either written or edited or published or anything. So let's keep it. I'll keep it Not ego, no ego involved. I read a book recently. I'm going to have to I've got to find it on my screen to get the name right. Which blew me away. I did a blog about it. I'll send you the link across. The best book on the history of Vienna that you didn't think you needed. There was an article in, I don't know, FT, I think, and it was talking about how in Vienna they cross-fertilized ideas. So the scientists would speak to the mathematicians, they would speak to the artists, they would speak to the writers. They spent time together, primarily men. It wasn't perfect, but it was sort of a male-oriented thing. They'd go out for a drink, they'd have a sing-song, but all these different people would come together, and that cross-fertilization of ideas was one of the big things that then led. And I didn't realize it. I'm not a historian. For me, history is. I think if we stop teaching history, there'd be fewer wars in the world. Don't tell kids what your hang-ups are. Don't move forward. But one of the things, as I was reading this book, and I'm going to read from from this blog that I wrote. So things that came out of Vienna, and we're talking about the end of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, into the First World War, then towards the Second World War. So neoliberalism, focus groups, toxic masculinity. You look at the work of Klimt's Judith 1 in A Whole New Light, fitted kitchens, attachment theory, the orgasmatron, psychoanalysis, management theory, coffee table art books, Mar-a-Lago, Trump's place, was designed by a Viennese architect. Hedy Lamarr, who people know as an actress, but actually she's mainly a scientist. She sort of did a bit of acting on the side. The science behind the atomic bomb, and just a whole lot more. All out of this period, these few decades of cross-fertilizing of ideas at a very difficult time. And you realize that, The Sound of Music with the Nazis coming into Austria was, that wasn't half of what was going on there. I just think everybody should read this book because it just helps you see the world in a very different sort of way. So that's my recommendation for a book.
Wow. That's blown my mind. I've written it down, so I'm going to look it up. And I think it is a really good way for us to finish, because you've just said, and I think our whole conversation actually comes back to what you just said about cross-fertilization of ideas. I think the more that we can. I spoke to the wonderful Jay Davenport recently, and he was saying about knowing our blind spots as well, and actually going, I can learn more by listening to somebody else, by the cross-pollination of ideas. And I think you also said about meshing. I'm not, me, I'm all into Venn diagrams, but actually about people kind of working together and overlapping on things. I think that is what has really come to the forefront of my mind more than ever from our chat. This idea of there is another way, about listening to other people. There isn't one way's better than the other. But I like the idea of magpieing things. I constantly magpie Ian. Actually, I hadn't thought of that. I'm going to have a go with that and see how I get on. So it has been an absolute joy, Ian. And we've spoken about so many different things.
I talk quickly. I can get a lot in.
Well, and I don't talk quickly. I mean, really, us two together, it's a big conversation, isn't it, Ian? But thank you so much. It's like the Eurovision. Thank you so much from here in Northamptonshire. And
thank you very much from the Helsinki jury. 10 points.
From the Helsinki jury. And yes, we could ask people what their scores were, but, hey ho. But it's been absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much, Ian. It's always a pleasure and never a chore. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us this time on Catching Up with Sarah and Ginny.
Always a pleasure and never a chore.